HGTV, because one thing, I don't know if you know this about Ricky, but he's got an incredible eye.
Yeah.
I mean, he's really like a beautiful designer, and Matt is an artistic soul, and I don't talk to Matt as much these days. He and Robin moved, I believe, to Pennsylvania with their 2 children, but if you've ever seen Matt's sculpture and his artwork, it is, I mean, he's truly gifted. So all the 3 people that you have said are true artists who don't let the medium define them, but they find different ways to express themselves. And I think that knowing people like that, in a way, gave me the courage to say, you know what, I'm going to write my book. I'm going to put it all out there, all in black and white for everybody to read, whether it's good, bad, ugly, indifferent, or boring. So that's, I think, what I took from all 3 of them.
Wow, and that's a lot.
That's a lot, yeah. I mean, it's I mean, I have to say, and I don't know if I express it enough, but those hallways of another world from the years that I was on that show were blessed. And I don't think just for me, but I know that I had a special relationship with everybody there because I was coming in such a very vulnerable state that I really was a sponge. And I learned from, you know, Connie, from Victoria Wyndham, from Charles Keating, and, of course, from Linda Dano. And I was open. I was open to learning anything and everything that I possibly could. So I think my takeaway from my years there were more than just, you know, a Soap Opera Digest award or, you know, just a great thing to have on my resume. I really grew a lot in those 3 years, and I like I said, I don't want to be redundant, but I learned from everybody.
Right. Now, what was one of your favorite storylines from there?
Well, I love the whole storyline of finding out that I was Linda's or Felicia and Lucas's daughter. I think that was a revelation for everybody. It was wonderful. I loved that.
Yeah, it's nice to know that you had a mom and a dad, you know, to anybody, whether it be in a story or in real life, you know. And a lot of people could probably relate to that were fans that were watching the show. Yes,
I think to know that one belongs. I think that's all anybody ever wants, isn't it? Just to belong, to be loved and to love. That's it.
Yep.
You know, maybe if you have a nice handbag, that's nice too, to go along with it.
But you got to have the shoes to go with it.
But then you have to have the shoes, and then you need the outfit. So really by the time you're done, you just have to stick with the love.
Right. Now, if Lorna were a real person, would she be someone you would be having as a friend?
Yeah. Because I think that, I like to say Lorna is a real person because there really wasn't much difference between Lorna and I.
Right.
And, Lorna, Lorna would probably be a really good friend of mine because I would always know that she had my back.
Right, and you'd take each other, your wings, you know, and help each other out.
That's right.
Well, after you left Another World, you went on to play, you know, different primetime TV shows. Like I said, 2.5 Men. There was Medium, which I love that show, and I was so upset when they canceled that with no notice.
I think I've been on every show except ER and Friends.
Yeah.
And it's too late now.
Yeah. You were a regular on Jericho playing Mimi Clark. Now, that isn't a show that I watch, but I did start watching it on Amazon. They have where you can watch the show. And I have to say that I'm really involved with it now, and I'm going to watch more of it later tonight. I'm in season 2. I think it's episode 3 is next. That's a really interesting show, and it's totally different from everything you've done otherwise.
Yes. I think that show came a couple of years too early. I think if it were on now, it would be an absolute hit. I mean, you know, look at the shows that are on today. Look how well Under the Dome did last night.
I was just going to say, that's what it reminded me of.
Well, sure, Under the Dome is like Jericho with a dome.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
exactly.
Revolution. So I think it came a little too early. Having said that, though, again, everything happens for a reason, and it came when it should have. And especially for me, I originally auditioned for the role of the bartender, Mary Bailey. And God bless John Turtletaub and Dan Schatz and Stephen Spatsky and Kareem Zrek, John Steinberg. They saw something in me that made them think me. Lord knows what it was, but they saw something. And I thank them for that, because it was one of the first times in my career that I got to play a funny character in a drama. And where the writers
you had some
actually,
good lines in there.
Yes, where the writers actually wrote for the way that of my type of humor. I'm very dry. And that was a real departure for me, being on that show and having that. And then, working, I got to be reunited with Skeet, who I'd worked before on Miracles. I got to work with some amazing people. So, again, another gift that was given to me. And they're still fighting. Our fans, we have incredible fans. If anybody's going to bring Jericho back, it's going to be them.
And, these days that can happen, too. I mean, I've seen, just recently, of course, they brought All My Children and One Life to Live back, and then Drop Dead Diva. Those were all dead in the water, and now they're back.
I didn't know about Drop Dead Diva. I did an episode of that. That was a cute show. I liked that show. Well, good for them.
Yeah, they had their first episode this past Sunday. So
that's
there
wonderful.
Was a big petition, and the fans, let everybody hear, their cries for bring it back, and they did. And it's amazing to me every time something like that happens now, because just think a couple years ago, that would never happen. They don't care how many people want it back. They just go by numbers.
They did, because Jericho was brought back for a second season due to the fan response, due to the Nut campaign. And I think it was one of the first times in a decade that a show has been brought back. And I'll never forget getting that call.
Oh, I can imagine.
That was an amazing moment. I was working on a Lifetime movie with Elizabeth Berkley called Dark Beauty. And I remember being in the car on my way home, calling my manager and going, okay, well, now this movie's almost done. What's up? What am I going to go to next? And him saying, well, we're not sure yet, but, there's going to be a great job right around there, right around the corner. I was like, I feel that. Something weird is going to happen. And that night, I tell you, Pam and David, I came home, and I got a call at 9:30. And my phone never rings at 9:30, because coming from where I come from in my upbringing, if you call me at 9:30, because everybody knows I go to sleep early, it means somebody's dead.
Oh, I know.
So I was shocked, and I was like, oh, my God, who's calling? And then I didn't answer, and then my cell phone, and it was Skeet. And Skeet said, we're back. I said, what do you mean we're back? Well, where are we back? Where'd we go? And he goes, the show, we're back. They brought us back. And it was incredible. Then he came over, he and my husband drank scotch, and we called everybody on the cast.
Yeah.
It was great.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because I wondered why, when I saw season 1, I think, was 2006, and then season 2 was like 2008 or something. And I wondered why there was that time in between, and now you've just explained that to me. So that's great.
We were canceled, and then literally I think we were canceled in May, and then brought back in June. And then we started up again. But there was, it was crazy. It was just crazy the way it happened. Really, really crazy. But in between then, I also did, with John Turtletaub, National Treasure 2. So had I never done Jericho, I doubt I would have been involved in National Treasure 2.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Well, like you said, things happen for a reason. So it's just what you were meant to do at that time, to get more under your belt and do something a little bit different.
That's right.
Let's talk about your book, though. That's a big thing that you have going on right now, and it's called Gracefully Gone. And as you said, it's, about your dad. It actually includes his journal and your journal. Would you tell our listeners more about that?
Absolutely. When I was 12 years old in 1980, my father was diagnosed with brain cancer. He kept a journal from the time of his diagnosis in 1980 through his remission in 83. I believe it was written retrospectively. And when he began to die in about 1989, when we began to notice that he was failing, and I moved home in 1990 to take care of him, I kept a journal, not knowing at the time that he had kept one as well. So upon his death, maybe a year later, when my mom was packing up the house and moving, she gave me his writings. And I held on to them for a bit. And when I left the role of Lorna in 1994, I was living in New York City, and I took it out and I began the process of trying to find some way to marry the two or fuse the two. Mm-hmm. And it was, this is, 22 years later, I finally did it. It's taken me a long time. I would put it away. I would take it out. Every time I had a baby, mm-hmm. I would take it out again during my pregnancy and try and figure out how to do it. And for some reason, it wasn't the right time. It just wasn't the right time. I remember it was pretty much almost done after I had Mila, who's my eldest, and it wasn't right. And so I took it out again when I was pregnant with Esme. Again, not right. And then again after Greta, and for some reason in the past 6 months, I just said, it's right now. It's the time. And so much of it had already been done. I just had to tweak it and really make sure that everything was intertwined. And what I found in completing this project really for myself was that what I had done is provide a decade-long dialogue almost between my father and I, only we're not talking to each other. Mm-hmm. We're talking about his brain cancer. And we're all talking around the subject, even my mother and my brother. Nobody's ever really talking about it. Mm-hmm, we're talking we're talking about it, but we're not talking to each other.
Right.
And isn't that kind of the way it is? At least in my experience, everybody revolves around the person who is ill, but there's not a lot of talking about it.
It's very true. It's very true. I went through that with my mom. She died of breast cancer at the age of 52. Mm. And, my sister and I and my grandmother, would try to take care of my mom. And I did a lot of phone calls and trying to, do research and trying to find different ways to help her. And because we were told that it was, she wasn't going to recover from it. So I kept myself busy that way. But then again, I didn't say to my sister, come on, let's do this, and I would only meet up with her and my grandmother when we were with my mother.
Right.
And you really just didn't talk about her dying or anything. You just lived in the moment.
That's right. And I think that's what I was trying to say, although you said it a lot better. You don't talk about it because to talk about it is to admit it. And if you admit it, then that's like giving into it. And if you give into it, then you might as well just pack it all up and die.
Exactly.
And I think
right.
with small children, my mother simply couldn't even fathom what was happening to her life. Mm-hmm. And so to talk about it with us just was not something that was going to happen.
Right.
And that's one of the things that I wanted to explore in the book and also have people maybe be a takeaway from it, is that the children are often the forgotten ones. Not out of neglect, mm-hmm. in any harmful way, but the well parent is taking care of the dying parent. Or in the case of my brother and I, we had to take care of my father in ways that we probably never should have, but did, because that's what you do.
Right.
You rally and you do that. But that's an awful lot of responsibility for a child of 12. It's an awful lot of responsibility for a child of 22. It's a lot of responsibility for an adult person to take care of a parent. People don't talk about it, and so that's what I wanted to do, was kind of open up the dialogue, take it out of the closet, so to speak, and have people know that they're not alone.
And there's something that written in the book description on Amazon that to me it says everything. Where you had written, even though my mother and brother went through the same experience as we experienced it very differently. It was as if my father was the love boat, meaning the show, and we three were on our own separate lifeboats surrounding him, each of us handling our grief privately. Perhaps if we're lucky, Gracefully Gone might allow someone